wasn't going to come inside, but Jack and I sent him to the doctor, and he ended up needing some antibiotics. So I'm second string, so apologize for that. But we're going to talk just a few things about some of the infrastructure bill that's been going around. Done a little bit of research. So basically what I do is I work with the DOTs and take Trimble Geospatial to the DOTs. Jack and I have been with Trimble for combined of 53 years of Trimble experience.
That means we're very, very old.
Very old, and forgot a lot of stuff. But I'm also going to talk about the MX50, the hardware that we brought to the Tuck show today. So we'll just jump in. Someone's got to tell me when I need to stop, because I think I'm not supposed to go to 12, right? So there's a couple things we're going to talk about. So, you know, we had a conversation the other day where we were trying to define what digital twins was. It was interesting to me also that this $1.2 trillion bill that was passed is known by many different names as well. So the best I can tell is from FHWA, they call it the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, you know, also known as, AKA, the Investment in Infrastructure and Jobs Act. We've been calling it IIJA around Trimble, BIL and other places, but you know, they're still trying to figure out what we're going to call it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So you've seen some of the funding categories. I took a little deeper dive and looked at more of what those funding categories are, right? So these are 5-year funding categories for the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, the BIL. So bridges, airports, power, rail, water, EV charging, and then also there's high-speed public transportation, ports and waterways, environmental cleanup, and infrastructure resiliency. So that's what to do when there's flood events, when there's, you know, hurricanes, earthquakes, stuff like that. So they're trying to toughen up or make more resilient the infrastructure. What's this going to do? It's, you know, basically, you know, at Trimble, our CEO calls it, you know, a once-in-a-generation funding program. So we'll see as the money starts to drop. I was talking to a DOT just a couple of weeks ago, and he was in the Office of Land Survey, and I asked him if they started to see any of the funds come through. He said he didn't expect to see it this fiscal year. He expected it the soonest to hit the next budget cycle, which for them will be, you know, starting in July. So we'll see what happens when that money starts to trickle through. A lot of it is allocated, and then a lot more of it is issued in grants. So I went back to the Federal Highway website, take a look at, say, Florida, for instance. What's Florida expected to receive over the 5 years? So they're expected to receive these kinds of funds over the course of 5 years there's a Transportation Research Board, it's a federal board. There was a meeting in January, and they were talking about this fund. The transportation secretary for Washington State, he said, look, realistically, what Washington State, I don't know if I put them in here or not, if Washington State is a $7 billion DOT budget. They have 7,000 employees. They were expecting in allocations to get $200 to $300 million a year in just direct allocations. The rest of it was going to be in grants. Some of those grants are going to be provisioned to the state depending on the kind of project. We'll talk about some of those grants, but some of the grants are competitive grants. So it's not just, you know, the federal government opening the coffers and dumping money on the states. So just want to set the expectation of what we're seeing and what we're trying to understand. So we're trying to follow this and, you know, what's it going to mean for our customers, you know, going forward. Like I said, you know, we work with a lot with the DOTs, and we haven't seen a ton of money yet, right? So it's coming. So Florida, I just threw a couple of states up here. Minnesota, Each of those, the reason I put those up there is they have about the same amounts of roads and bridges, 13,000 bridges and 100 and something thousand miles of roads. So they're kind of similar in size and scope. Georgia, because they're close, it's kind of the same thing. So there's money that's allocated, but it's going to take some time to come through. So I said that money's going to get allocated, but also there's these programs. So these are some of the existing programs that have been expanded under the infrastructure bill. Okay. All of those add up to, there's about 65 billion there. If you add up those numbers, again, that's over 5 years. And again, some of those grants are competitive grants, and some of them will be allocated per project. So we've seen stuff on, you see there's a RAISE grant there, there's an infra grant, stuff like that. So there's money that's allocated into different buckets. Now, when I went to that conference, they seemed proud of the fact that they had 12 new grants and programs, because we're the government, we like programs, I guess. So these are new grants that they've allocated under this infrastructure law, right? Federal highway mega projects. So I had to look up what mega projects was. For them, what that's defined as over 100 million and less than 500 million is a mega project, and they'll fund those if they get the grant at 50% funding. So I just want to kind of give you a taste, a flavor of what we see is going on with the infrastructure law. So to pivot and kind of transition, what does this mean as far as, you're sitting there thinking, what does this mean for me? Is this going to be more projects and things like that? So I wanted to back up a little bit or talk about what's been going on. So from the federal highway regulatory agencies, what they've been doing, they've kind of been pushing what we've been talking about as digital twins or digital as-builds or digital delivery or whatever we want to call it. They've been kind of pushing that for some time. There's a program called Everyday Counts that the Federal Highway Administration has been implemented. They actually started some time ago, 2012, I think it was. And so if you look at the bottom of that screen, you can see each initiative was about 5 or 6 different things. And it could be, they would investigate concrete materials, they would investigate using, different types of steel for bridges and stuff like that. But I listed what I thought was appropriate and applicable to geospatial and to what we do, in this room. So you can see back in 2013, they were already talking about how to leverage 3D models for construction, right? And so basically what that Everyday Counts initiative is it's a 2-year kind of a funded account where the federal highway gets with the DOTs and they say, look, here's some initiatives that we want to try and implement. And so they would kind of fund these research and put programs in place to try and encourage this digitization that we've been talking about, that we talked about the other day, and that y'all are part of. So you can see since 2013, there's been initiatives that the government has been encouraging to at least the departments of transportation that we've seen. I remember, I don't know how long ago, it must have been 2015 or so, I was at one of these EDC meetings and they were talking about, look, if we've got digital plans, how do we sign the plans, right? Because today we print out a plan, we sign and stamp it, we know it's good. And so that was the topic of an hour-long conversation at this EDC. So those are the kinds of things that they were thinking about, going forward. And as we progress, the latest one, EDC 6, is implementing digital as-builds, right? So they're funding, they are encouraging, and they're helping to encourage specifications and stuff like this to digitize things. So my point here is that the stuff we've been talking about has been encouraged from Federal Highway and has been, long time coming, and industry has kind of been aware of it and kind of moving towards that. So we haven't just had this sprung upon us, at the very beginning of this year or whatever, when the infrastructure bill went into play. Okay? So, for example, there's a few states it's going to talk about that have a specific initiative. They call it their digital delivery initiative. So Pennsylvania DOT is one. They've got a website dedicated. Everything that I've shown here is all public information. You can go and find it all. Most of it came from FHWA website itself. Pennsylvania DOT is working on a digital initiative, and they expect to have it by 2025. And Jack, was just talking to him and was asking them about what did COVID do because of everybody kind of shut down. They suggested that COVID actually accelerated it for them because people were all spread out and they needed that digitization to kind of get their jobs done. So even though we've had a lot of other things that have been shut down because of COVID for 2 years, at least for Pennsylvania, that's at least maintained, if not accelerated, their digital delivery initiative. And so you can see in here, this is talking about stuff all the way from design, all the way through construction and operation and maintenance. Let's see, who else? Minnesota has published July, last summer, they published a digital implementation for asset management, right? So they just let a contract that was just awarded a few weeks ago to go out and collect this data. And they had categorized all of the different objects that they wanted collected and the attributes to all the objects that they want collected, and they're expecting that to be delivered digitally, okay? So they're driving it. This is another example of a digital project that Minnesota is trying to go from basically design through construction and do it digitally, right? No plan sets. All the way through construction, inspection, operation, and maintenance. So this is their first project that they're trying to do. I know Utah DOT did a project like this a couple of years ago, and they wanted to be, they were doing smaller projects, no plans. This one is I think it's a $150 million project. Just from what they've seen so far, they've estimated that they've saved about $10 million on the design phase of this project. And then here's just some other states with digital directives that I found real quick. So it's coming, it's going to be asked for. How many DOT people do we have here? Couple, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. So if you're in one of these states, you probably know about this. If you're not, you probably still know something about this, or it's coming, all right? Okay, so I'll just pause there. Is there any questions or anything about, infrastructure bill or any of this digital delivery things? How much time do I have again? Do we know? That's how you get a nice clean point cloud. We do a thing called classification. I think TopoDOT, I don't run TopoDOT, so I come here and figure out how much I don't know. But we do things, we can extract a few things, right? We can extract what it says up there. I won't read it to you. Just because some customers find that useful, right? And we can go through the classification. Once everything's all nice and clean, then we can say, well, let's take out all the buildings. Let's take out, the poles. Let's find the trees and stuff like that. So we can kind of clean up the system, clean up the scan. So if you only need the ground, you can, do your classification and then turn off everything else so you're only dealing with the ground. We spent a lot of time on the classification, and the smart guys like Justin could talk about that for a long time. But you would want to do things like, can we classify the road, right? We would want to get to that point, so that if you're looking at road data, let's get rid of all the building stuff. We're not deleting it. We're just putting in a classification and then turn it off so I can just focus on what I'm interested in. And then there's an example of, classification that's got some stuff in it, and instead of having to go out and delete all that, you just say, I just give me the ground. So then there's an example of just the ground, right? So now I can extract my road and stuff like that. We do some extraction. We can do some extraction for some lane lines. We can do some for curb. We can do some for power lines. Like I said, we do some, right? We look at what you guys do in TopoDOT and go, wow, that's amazing stuff. Oh, please, sir, may I have a little extraction? And please don't let it take. I think Ted said something about, what was it, a mile in an hour or something. So whatever. If you're extracting a curb, okay, so we're not that fast. We're 300 feet in 30 seconds. Yeah, okay, that's okay. I don't think we do that, but we're little. We're just trying. But there's a few customers that will want to take some data and only want to get one thing. So maybe they don't have to go all the way to TopoDOT to get that one curb. But generally, most of our customers, when we do a demonstration, we are showing them, up to here, the classification, maybe some extraction, and then we show TopoDOT. Both Justin and Skylar are the guys that do our demonstrations. They are pretty advanced TopoDOT users, because that's where most of the customers are wanting to get the data from. And then, this is for you, Ted, and then it says export to TopoDOT. So you get done with our stuff, you get a nice clean point cloud, you clean it all up, right? Make sure it's right, like we've been talking about, well controlled, good clean point cloud, and then boom, press the button, export to TopoDOT. Okay? So that's really kind of the workflow that our customers use, and then you take it from here, because this is what you guys do, right? You're the experts. So we have an MX50 mounted on a vehicle outside. So during, I think it's lunchtime, is when the demonstrations are. I don't think they'll let us pull the truck up into the courtyard. Jack could probably get it there, but we'll be out there. If anybody wants to take a look at it, we're out there. We can turn it on and run it. We can do whatever is useful for you for the MX50. Okay? Anything else? We good?
Great.
All right.
Thank you, Darin. Appreciate it very much. Yeah, I'd just like to say that, actually, Darin and Jack, we've been working on some really interesting initiatives too. So it's we actually got some applications for our hybrid road extraction, because we had a few, I think it's PennDOT, that had some accidents. They really went where water's puddling, and you can do things like that with TopoDOT. We haven't even, typical road extraction goes well beyond what you guys typically do every day. You can actually get puddles, and it's cross sections and all that with our pavement assessment and combine them. So there's really some fascinating things and some MSC wall stuff we're doing. So it's
when our customers ask about roading and road condition, stuff like that, our guys are jumping right into TopoDOT.
Yeah.
Okay, here's how to do it.
It's really, and that, like I said, that's a growing area for us in the mobile LiDAR world. I think it's kind of moving up from the bottom. You know, we still don't do like 10,000 miles of, you know, the typical federal stuff that metric does and all that. But there's a lot of municipalities. There's a lot of things that just want to know how the roads are doing, what's happening, you know, and it's 120 miles or something like that, or 100 miles. And like I said, the big guys don't care, you know, they that. So it's been fun working with these guys, and I really appreciate, you know, the cooperation we've had. And yeah, guys, this is your chance to, you know, if some of you guys I know are just processing and you don't get to see equipment, it's out there, you know, so take some time and take a look, and you understand a little bit what happens in the field and what those guys are going through and what they have to do. So when it comes to you, it makes you understand better what you know, what to ask for. I always say from our perspective, we want to put requirements on the guys basically collecting data. It makes our life easier if it comes in a format and they know what kind of, you know, things to do. So the more you understand about that, the more you know what to ask for, you know, and then it's a little more seamless coming into, you know, our process and, you know, after it's done in the field. So yeah, there's a lot to learn. I'm going to take a look at the MX-50. It'll be pretty interesting. I haven't seen anything run in a long time, so that'll be fun. So next up, we have Tan from Regal, and he's going to talk about, Tan, are you out there? There you are. Okay.